Hi everyone, welcome back to Ibrox. We are here to discuss Rangers 1, Hearts 0. Chris Jack, that was a game of football, wasn't it? Rangers started well. I thought they were actually pretty good for the first 10 minutes, and they scored a goal that saw them kind of play the game at a good tempo. They moved it kind of from back to front, actually. It was a really good goal. There wasn't much after that, was it? I feel like this is a video we've made before after a game when you're discussing another result, another Premiership game. Rangers have won by one goal, and yeah, Ibrox was not a comfortable place in that second half. There was one Hearts goal away from a very vocal home crowd at full time.
Can we just talk about the first 6 minutes in the
Yeah.
video there and say no more about it? Because from a Rangers perspective, there's not a lot else to take from that. Certainly, if you're looking for positives, really short supply. I thought the goal was good, worked it well, worked it quite quickly. Jeffy and Barrie combined well down that left hand side. Neat bit of play from Cherny with a step over. Not convinced, need to see it back, but not convinced that Tav's shot was actually going in. But Desser's right place, right time, puts it away. You then think it's a good start, gets the crowd back on side after a difficult couple of weeks. Rangers can kick on from here. That they did not. Very, very little apart from that in the first half. The manager just spoke in the press conference there about how the team made the crowd nervous. I think that summed it up. And as you say, if Hearts had scored, the one that Suter gives the chance away, Butland does well to come out and deny Vargas. Vargas should have scored. Everybody's through and hits the post. If either of those chances go in, you know what the reaction around it here is going to be. And that then asks huge questions of these players mentally, not just the tactical side of it that the manager's looking at. So not one that I think will feature prominently in the end of season Rangers review.
Yeah. Let's look at the game chronologically. Then Rangers started well. I felt like it was even after the goal for maybe up until 15 minutes they played with a good intensity. Then the intensity just seemed to totally die, and my reading as to why that happens is Rangers fall back. Their shape's slightly different off the ball at the moment, so they've got Raskin in behind. Before they were kind of a 4-4-2 off the ball, and the defence was quite exposed. Nico Raskin was given the man of the match. I thought maybe Chefty deserved it for me, but Raskin's definitely been one of the better performers in recent weeks in that number 6 role. But as I was saying, the Rangers then set off the game a lot, and they actually sat quite deep for a lot of that first half. They can't get up the pitch. This is the issue that is I think coming up week after week. They can't get up the pitch because they're falling too deep. They're playing a kind of a man-for-man system. They don't have much pace across the front three. We know that Dessers, who scores a winning goal today, but he's not a kind of back-to-goal player who will lead you forward. Is that fair? It felt like they're pressing for whether they were tired from Thursday night or that they were just too far. They were just too deep. It felt like their pressing couldn't inject tempo into the game, and then they were rushing things when they did get the ball back, especially in that second half. They gave the ball away so much, didn't they?
Can Cyril Dessers be the cause of and the solution to Rangers' problems right now? He's the solution because he's over the last week he scored 3 goals in 3 competitions. Where would Rangers be if he hadn't scored those goals?
True.
But then you say, no, Rangers don't get up the pitch. They don't get up the pitch because they don't have that figurehead up there. They don't have that player who can take it in, who can hold it up, who can allow other players to get close to them. Now, I think there is an onus on the midfielders perhaps to play slightly higher. There's onus on the wide players to offer more at times, but the focal point is obviously the number 9, is obviously Dessers. As we spoke about pre-match, it's not just the goals that he's been judged on.
Yeah.
If you're just judging him on goals, you have to say his return so far is good. I think that's the point that he was trying to make when I spoke to you the other night in the mix zone. I think that's the point that the manager's trying to make as well. It's the other aspects of it, and is that detrimental to the way the side is playing? Is he the ideal fit for a Philippe Clement style of football? I don't think he is. But right now, he's the only guy in the team that looks like that looks like providing those moments. I wrote in Vincent an analysis piece that again Rangers look like a side waiting for someone to produce a moment. It's not creating chances through phases of play that you can clearly see are worked on, and that they're carving teams open, doing the same things, often enough and knocking at the door. They're basically hoping that someone's going to do something. And that in that first half, I say Dessers got the moment. Apart from that, I think it was 77 minutes or so by the time Craig Gordon had another save to make. Was it Barrie, I think, had a shot, and then it came off the defender and he goes back down to save it. Casemiro obviously hits the woodwork later on as well, but apart from that, you're really looking at Rangers they should be creating a lot more in these games, and that lack of creativity, that lack of guile, that lack of goals, ultimately it's not sustainable.
Yeah, because I think if the game, I'm looking at the pitch and I realise that people can't see the pitch, so I'll try and not make my point based on it. But if the game's kind of played in the middle of the pitch, then Rangers can get up the pitch by trying to get Dessers in behind. But when they're pushed back into their own 18-yard box, he can't hold the ball up. So if he's running beyond, then they can maybe get second balls, or we saw away at Olympiacos, sorry, that 3 or 4 times in that first half alone, Dessers almost got onto the end of chances. But when the intensity drops in this Rangers performance, it feels like on and off the ball, they just don't have the floor's maybe too low, if that makes sense. They don't have that kind of, whether it be that they protect the centre really well or they're really solid. It just felt like they got pushed back quite a lot today. Let's speak about the atmosphere, because Philippe Clement was speaking in his press conference there, and he was honest about some things, and he was honest that the second half performance wasn't good enough. He agreed that he was very frustrated watching that, and you could see his frustration with that actually on the touchline today, Chris. The atmosphere in here got tetchy, and I asked him about that, and he kind of said, well, it wasn't in the first half, and it's on the players to give the fans something to cheer about and not get on their back. What did you make of it in the second half? Because to me, it felt like, obviously Rangers, if they were to concede a goal and drop points, the reaction would have been pretty angry, but it felt like to me the frustration was just growing and growing in that second half, because Rangers were putting themselves in the position where one long ball, one dropped chance, one moment where Hearts went through one-on-one could have left them in a really difficult position.
It could have been, and that's the position that they put themselves in ultimately. Yeah. That's the position that the manager finds himself in, because the form and the performances overall have not been good enough. They are sitting 9 points behind Celtic and 9 points behind Aberdeen at this stage of the season. They don't score enough goals. There's defensive mistakes, as we've touched on. The fans are not overly enthused about what they're watching right now, and it's understandable. As you say, if Hearts had scored, you know what the reaction around about this place would have been. It would not have been a good place for a Rangers manager or a Rangers player to be. Ultimately, it's their fault, because this is the position that they put themselves in. How do they turn that around? It's going to be a long-term process, and it's whether they do have that time, because you know the next time there is a setback, we know what the reaction is going to be. We know the questions are going to mount on the manager, on his position. Over the coming weeks, there will be a chairman appointed here, there will be a chief exec, and once that structure is there, I think Clement loses a bit of that bubble that he's in. Almost, he loses that layer of protection. Once there is people above him that can actually make these decisions, I think the calls for those decisions to be made will grow louder if the fans continue to watch performances and see to actually watch what they're watching right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair, because you might look at, I don't know what the chance creation numbers will say. Rangers probably were, they were probably just like a goal ahead again, and that the numbers back up what the eye sees, which is these are performances where Rangers are just eking through. And although you could say Rangers played on Thursday night, so did Hearts, and this isn't a performance that's been isolated to when they've been playing on the back of a Thursday, and you can maybe say there's a bit of fatigue. One player who was fatigued, Clement said, can you say that was fatigued? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, long week. Was Connor Barron. Ibrox didn't like that substitution. No. Did it? Clement said that fans, I think the quote was, fans don't know all the facts, and what by that he meant that Connor Barron had done a lot of work, which he had done in midweek, and he didn't want to risk an injury. But that was not a popular move. Even if, as Clement said, maybe he was just tired, and he had put in a big shift on Thursday night, hadn't he?
I think you can see the reasoning behind it, but I can also understand why the crowd reacted that it did. It's unusual for the fans to be that vocal on a subject. You will get things that people perhaps don't agree with, and up the Granty we'll hear the odd shout come from the main stand, and you'll see people round about. For the reaction to be as vocal as that is unusual. I think it probably speaks to where Clement is in the eyes of the Rangers fans. They do have their doubts, they do have their questions about his side, about his style, about where Rangers are and where Rangers are heading. And I think that reaction feeds into that. It didn't cost Rangers the game, it didn't win Rangers the game. And on like first look, you can understand, as you say, Barron has done a power of work over the course of Rangers' career so far, put in some shift on Thursday night. People like Dujon Sterling, they want to see Dujon Sterling on the pitch. I think the problem is they want to see Dujon Sterling on the pitch at right back. If it had been Tav coming off for Sterling and somebody else coming on for Kieran Dowell, Barron, sorry.
We'll get to that.
Like Kieran Dowell, for example, if it had been another switch in the midfield and Sterling comes on for Tav, it might not have been the same. It might not have been the same reaction.
Yeah, the rest of the subs in, because Dowell came on, McCausland came on, Sterling, Casemiro, and someone else came on, did they? Daniel, yeah. The subs, I felt like it was a game where you maybe needed a bit of a change in the front three before it arrived, and again, that was probably a bit of the frustration as well. That those changes weren't that early. I think Sterling and Casemiro came on just after the hour mark. James Tavernier taken off again. That's been quite a few times as of late. Again, we've spoken about this to death, Chris, and who's first choice in there. And again, you could argue today that when Dujon Sterling's played well at right back in the first half against Olympiacos in midweek, then it makes sense to keep him there instead of putting Casemiro there. But that's deviating from the point. Clement, talking about Tavernier's performance, said that he made some good moments going forward, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he could have been better defensively, but that's going to continue to be an issue, I think, the right back position at the moment, until Rangers are playing well, because people are frustrated, isn't it? And again, that's another game where I thought going forward, Tavernier did have some good moments. Defensively, he didn't have great moments, and there's just so much change at right back at the moment, it's hard to know what's really going on.
And that's contrasted to left back. I think people went into this season thinking, well, Tav will start the season at right back, and there's going to be this chop and change at left, because we don't really know, is it Ridvan, is it Jefty, who's going to be the first choice in there. Even now that Ridvan is back training, Jefty's first choice in that left back position all day long. Right back, you've got three guys that could play in there. You've got Tav, you've got Sterling, you've got Casemiro. I think if you asked everyone in here who's your first choice, lots of people will have different options. I think Sterling would probably be the consensus. I think that would be the call that people would make. It's not going to happen. He's not going to be first choice and play the number of games like Jefty has played. Obviously, Ridvan's not been available, but I'd be surprised if you see Sterling going in there and really nailing down that position. There is going to be this rotation. I don't think that was a James Tavernier performance that's going to answer too many of his critics or win over too many of them. Like you said, a couple of chances, got involved in the goal early on. Apart from that, didn't offer a huge lot. A couple of ones that were blocked at the other end, second half. Defensively, gave the ball away a few times. There was one he gave the ball away and actually chased back and recovered it quite well, and went from a groan from giving the ball away to a round of applause for actually getting back and recovering his own mistake. But I don't think it was a game from Tav that's going to have people saying, well, he definitely deserves to start when Rangers are back after the break.
Yeah, and I guess just finally in that second half, it was a very open game. Hearts will maybe feel aggrieved that they didn't fashion loads of opportunities, but the game was always kind of delicately poised, and Rangers gave the ball away a lot. And again, that feeds into the frustration because of the performance overall. They needed to get through today in terms of result, because if they hadn't got a win here, they'd have fallen into double digits behind Aberdeen, who show no signs of letting up at the moment at the top, tied with Celtic. So that what you kind of take away from today. Obviously throughout the week we'll cover a lot of different points and individual players and all the usual stuff, but as Rangers go into another international break, if we contrast it to the last international break, what was the last game before the last international break?
Oh, it's been that many.
Can't remember. But whatever it was, are we? Here's a question I will pose to you. Right? Is there more? Let me start that again. The questions that remained over Rangers in the last international break, have any of them been answered this international break? Is that succinct enough?
The short answer is no. Yeah. I think there's probably more of them. There's probably more. That's the situation that Rangers find themselves in. I don't think any of them have really been answered. When you look at the team, you look at the individuals, and in terms of the manager, there are more questions now than there was heading into that break. There's more questions than there was earlier on in the season. There's more questions than there was at the end of the season last year. I think that's the biggest issue that Rangers have to solve right now. I touched on the boardroom situation. Once that's resolved, there's going to be even more focus on Clement, and I don't think, I mentioned Tav, that's not a performance that's going to win over a lot of his doubters. I don't think that's a 90 minutes that's going to win over a lot of Clement doubters either.
Yeah, I also think it's important to mention Chefty was good, and it's probably not easy to be good as a 20-year-old as he has been. So I've stocks in the Chefty performances because I think he's been really good so far, but I forgot to mention that. Anyway,
more on him to come this week, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, we'll leave it there. You can join us live 9:30 tomorrow morning on the morning briefing, where we'll talk about this more. Loads of coverage to come for you over the course of the international break, as well as we address all the big talking points here at Rangers. Until then, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.